Welcome back to the Connected Couple podcast, where we explore the ways partners can bridge differences and deepen connection. Today, we're diving into a topic that so many listeners have asked about: how couples with different neurotypes can not only survive, but truly thrive together. Specifically, we're talking about relationships where one partner is autistic, often more literal, structured, and calm-based, and the other is neurotypical, often more emotionally expressive and socially intuitive. Joining us today is Mark Hutten, an educator, couples coach, and author who specializes in neurodiverse relationships. Mark, welcome.
Thank you. And I'm glad we're talking about this today because all the neurodiverse couples that I talk to are navigating two entirely different operating systems. And once they understand that, everything changes.
Let's start with the big picture. When you work with neurodiverse couples, what do you notice most about the unique communication challenges they face?
Well, one of the clearest patterns is that each partner believes that the other is doing something wrong on purpose, when in reality they're just, using the communication style that makes sense to their brain. We come up with an example. Let's say there's the autistic partner, and we'll call him Alex. He may communicate in a very literal, concise way. He's not adding emotional nuance unless he believes it's absolutely necessary. And in the meantime, his neurotypical partner, let's say Emma, often communicates contextually. She will use tone, body language, emotional expression, and implied meaning, which is kind of foreign to the ASD partner. So let's say, for example, Emma says, I feel like we're drifting apart lately. And she's expecting some kind of empathy or conversation. But Alex hears a factual statement, and he could respond with something like, I don't think that's accurate. We've had the same routine this week. Now, he's not dismissing her in this example. He's responding to what he believes is the literal content. But she feels unseen, and he feels overwhelmed or confused by the emotional intensity, and both walk away thinking, well, why is this so hard? How come we're never on the same page? And that's the misunderstanding right there that's 100% repairable once you name it.
That leads perfectly into emotional needs. How do you help couples navigate situations where one partner's emotional needs clash with the other's?
Okay, well, that's a great question. And the key is to recognize that both partners have emotional needs. They just show up differently. The autistic partner often needs predictability, calm, clarity, low sensory load to feel emotionally safe, and so on. The neurotypical partner often needs responsiveness, connection, warmth, shared emotional space. She needs those things to feel safe. When those needs collide, I teach this little concept called dual accommodation. So the autistic partner learns, my neurotypical partner's emotional expression is not a threat, it's a bid for connection. And the neurotypical partner learns, my ASD partner's calmness or slowness to respond is not indifference, it's processing. So one couple created a simple script. Emma would say, I'm needing connection, not a solution. And that helped Alex understand he didn't need to fix anything, just be present. Meanwhile, Alex would say, I'm listening, but I need a few seconds to process, which in turn helped Emma not feel ignored. So small accommodations like those can completely diffuse what used to be emotional landmines.
Okay, great points, Mark. Let's talk about conflicts, because this is where wiring differences can really explode. How do neurodiverse couples resolve disagreements without shutting down, melting down, or hurting each other?
Well, I often tell couples, your nervous systems argue before you do. The autistic partners typically experience conflict as a sensory and cognitive overload. Their brain screams, retreat, shut down, stop the noise. What looks like withdrawal is actually self-protection. Now, the neurotypical partners often experience conflict as an emotional disconnection. Their brains scream, come close, talk to me, don't leave me alone. Let's work on this together. And so what looks like intensity is actually a plea for reassurance. So you have one person moving inward and the other person moving outward. And I teach a three-phase model. It's pause the physiology, regulate separately, return with structure. So let's look at each of those in turn. Pause the physiology, that's agree on a timeout phrase, something neutral like let's take a reset, and this prevents shame or blame. The second one is regulate separately. So Alex might pace, breathe, or sit in silence. And Emma might journal, cry, or call a friend. Different methods, same goal, soothe the nervous system. And then the third one is return to structure. So they sit down with a timer. Emma gets 3 minutes to explain her feelings without interruption. Then Alex gets 3 minutes to respond with clarity, not defensiveness. They alternate until the emotional weight lifts. So to the listeners, conflict becomes not about winning, but understanding each other's triggers, rhythms, and capacities.
Misunderstandings seem to be incredibly common in neurodiverse relationships. Can you share some examples of misunderstandings that come up again and again?
Absolutely. This is one of the easiest problems to fix once you see what's happening. So here's the 3 classic patterns. We have emotional tone versus literal meaning. We have directness versus indirectness, and we have intention versus impact. So let's look at each of these using the made-up examples of Emma and Alex again. So with respect to emotional tone versus literal meaning, Emma might say, "Fine, whatever," and then Alex takes it at face value. She said she's fine. But what she meant was, "I'm hurt and need you to notice." The next one was directness versus indirectness. For example, Alex says, "I'm not interested in going out to that event." Now what Emma hears is, "I don't care about what matters to you." But what Alex meant was, "I'm overwhelmed and trying to prevent sensory burnout." And then I mentioned intention versus impact. Emma expresses frustration and her voice gets louder. Alex experiences the volume as unsafe, even when she's not angry at him, but he shuts down anyway, and she interprets that as, "You are abandoning me again emotionally." So the key here is helping each partner understand the other's internal logic and not to judge it.
Daily routines can also be a major source of friction. How do couples manage the day-to-day differences in needs, structure, and expectations?
Well, the happiest neurodiverse couples I work with have one important rule, and it goes, always externalize the structure. So for the autistic partner, predictability isn't a preference, it's a regulation tool. And for the neurotypical partner, flexibility isn't moodiness, it's a connection tool. So I try to help them design a daily rhythm using visual schedules, shared apps, written agreements. Keep in mind that the ASD spouse is a visual learner in a verbal world. So a written agreement is going to be short and sweet. For example, it would read, morning, predictable and quiet. Evenings, intentional connection time. Weekends, one planned activity plus one spontaneous option. One couple that I worked with shared a whiteboard in the kitchen. Alex sees what's coming, which reduces his anxiety. Emma sees that her emotional and social needs have space in the schedule, which reduces her resentment. So when the schedule lives outside the couple on paper, it stops being a source of blame.
Mark, you mentioned emotional safety earlier. How do you help couples build empathy when their brains interpret situations so differently?
Yeah, well, empathy gets complicated when 2 people read signals differently. But empathy isn't guessing feelings, it's about curiosity and presence. So I try to teach couples these 3 steps. Ask, don't assume, narrate your internal world, and validate before problem solving. So let's look at each of these in turn. We'll use Emma and Alex again. So Emma might say, when you paused before responding, what was happening internally for you? And Alex might ask, when your voice gets louder, is that anger or intensity of emotion? So these simple questions create massive clarity. So that's the ask, don't assume. The second thing I mentioned was narrate your internal world. Autistic partners often benefit from hearing emotional context explicitly, while neurotypical partners benefit from hearing cognitive processing explicitly. So one couple used a phrase like, I'm not upset, I'm just thinking. Or I'm not accusing you, I'm trying to feel connected. So that's the narrate your internal world. Third thing I mentioned was validate before problem solving. So validation doesn't mean agreement necessarily. It means acknowledging the other person's experience. For example, I get why this felt overwhelming, or I see why this mattered to you. So empathy is built in these little micro moments where partners choose curiosity over defensiveness.
Okay, let's talk about emotional closeness. Many listeners say, I love my partner, but we connect so differently. What advice do you give about building intimacy in a neurodiverse marriage?
You know what, I actually love this topic because it's where couples often find hope again. Intimacy is not one thing. Think of it as a portfolio. So I try to help couples identify their connection lanes. There's shared interests, shared routines, shared stories. Shared interests would be maybe it's gaming, cooking, documentaries, long walks, I don't know. Shared routines would be rituals like, I don't know, maybe evening tea, bedtime debriefs, weekly planning, something like that. And shared stories would be maybe talking about childhood, talking about shared values, shared dreams, and so on. Now, autistic partners often connect deeply through activities, whereas neurotypical partners often connect deeply through emotional sharing. Now, when you combine the two, an activity plus a small dose of vulnerability, you create a bridge. For example, a couple might cook together, that's regulating for him, while discussing the week, which is connecting for her. So again, intimacy is not about sameness, it's about layering connection in ways that respect both nervous systems.
Mark, if you could give one piece of advice to neurodiverse couples listening today, one mindset shift that changes everything, what would it be?
Well, I would say the most important shift is this. Different doesn't mean defective. Different just means different. Your partner isn't being difficult. They're just being themselves, shaped by a brain that experiences the world in a unique way. So when you stop pathologizing the difference and start understanding it, the relationship becomes collaborative instead of adversarial. Both partners deserve accommodations. Both partners deserve understanding. Both partners deserve to feel safe and valued. So when couples view their wiring differences as complementary instead of conflicting, they can stop keeping score and start creating partnership.
Mark, this has been incredible. Thank you for shedding so much light and offering so much hope to couples who may feel misunderstood or stuck in patterns that don't make sense yet. If today's episode resonated with you, please share it with someone who might need this conversation. Subscribe to this channel. And until next time, stay curious, stay compassionate, and stay connected.
Would you like to schedule a paid private coaching session? This will be in the form of a face-to-face Zoom call. Underneath any of my videos, you'll see this Calendly link. If you click on that link, it'll open up my calendar. You can pick the available days and times that works for your schedule. You'll get a follow-up email immediately after purchasing a session that will have the Zoom link that coincides with the day and time that you picked. I will get an email too that you scheduled a session, and I will be available on that exact day and time, and we will talk. I look forward to working with you.